Well, welcome back to Business Day 2025. We're excited to welcome two industry-leading professionals from OVG Group to the stage. Also, if you have a raffle ticket for the Eagles tickets that we're giving away, we will be doing that in the middle of this session. So keep that on you, and we'll be doing that here in about 30 minutes. OVG Group is a complete service venue management company with about 400 venues and 50,000 employees across the globe. Our two professionals are Thomas Carrier and Emily Meister. Thomas Carrier has spent 9 of his 23 years in the venue management industry with OVG Group. He previously served as general manager for Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium in Memphis and currently serves as general manager of Blue Arena as an adjunct professor for the College of Business's Music Business program. And thank you all for being here as well. Emily Meister previously worked on the venue management side as well, serving as the manager of theater operations at the North Shore Center for the Performing Arts in Illinois before joining OVG Hospitality in 2021. She currently serves as the general manager, overseeing food and beverage operations at the Ranch Events Complex in Blue Arena. She was recently recognized as a recipient of the OVG Hospitality President's Award. Thomas and Emily will answer questions prepared by the Dean's Student Leadership Council. We will then open it up for an audience Q&A at the end, so feel free to come up with any of your questions on your own. We'll also be drawing for the 2 ringside Colorado Eagles tickets during the session, so look out for that. I'd now like to welcome to the stage Thomas Carrier and Emily Meister. Awesome. Well, thank you both for being here. I kind of want to start off. Just give us probably 2-3 minutes, who you are, where you're from, your experience, everything like that.
Well, test. There we go. Afternoon, everybody. Thank y'all for joining us today. Again, Thomas Carrier, General Manager of Blue Arena and OVG. I've been with the company, like Nathan said, for 9 years now. Been in the business for 23-ish years. Started when I was in junior year of undergrad at the University of Memphis. Started working for the old Pyramid Arena in Memphis, Tennessee, with a firm called SMG. And just worked my way up through the industry. Worked for the Memphis Grizzlies and FedEx Forum for about 10 years. Took a stint in college athletics with the University of Memphis. Was their first ever assistant AD for facilities and events, and oversaw all of our capital projects, did about $60 or $70 million in capital construction at the university while I was there, and then started working at Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, which is the former Liberty Bowl Stadium, which CSU's played in a couple of Liberty Bowl games over the years. So I got to see Coach Lubick win a couple games when he was coach there. It was a lot of fun. Relocated to northern Colorado last November. My wife's originally from Colorado. A lot of her family's from Fort Collins, so it was a chance to get her close to home. Had a chance, thanks to Chuck and Eric, to come adjunct here at CSU with the Music Business program, best program at the university. Please join us. It's been great. Thank you for having us. Any chance we get to talk about our industry. There's very few college programs that actually have a specialty in venue management or live entertainment. So chance for us to kind of talk about our industry, talk about our company, talk about life in our roles we enjoy doing, because it's a chance maybe to open a few eyes on who might want to take a stint in the large event and entertainment business. With that, I'll hand it over to the person with a much better professional photo than me.
Hi everyone, my name is Emily Meister. I'm the general manager of hospitality for the Ranch in Blue Arena. I actually got into the industry when I was 16, or I tried to get into the industry when I was around 16. I grew up in Chicago, and so I was going to concerts all the time. I was really kind of dedicated to the idea of just wanting to work in the music industry in some capacity, and I had no idea what that was going to look like. So I really took, a lot of what Jenny was saying I was really relating to, because I'm like, every time someone would give me an opportunity when I was 16, 17, I would take it just because I wanted to learn. And when I was 16, I started going to college, and I learned that if I joined a student government association, they would allow me to kind of host my own events. And so I used that as like a loophole to start hosting my own concerts, working with local bands, things like that. And then I got my degree in live entertainment from Columbia College Chicago, so got a lot of experience through that. And I really struggled to actually get into a structured job within the industry for a really long time, or what felt like a really long time. And it wasn't until I was probably like 24, I got a job at the North Shore Center for the Performing Arts, where I started part-time. I was a house manager, and I was there every night, and pretty quickly got promoted and became full-time, and was there for about 6 years. And it was really my introduction to having a structured job within the industry, and it taught me so much, from front of house operations to concessions and all of that. And then COVID hit, so I got laid off from that. I was out of a job for about a year. And I was like, I really want to get in with OVG, and I kept applying everywhere I could, and I just could not seem to land anything. And then this one job popped up as assistant general manager of hospitality, and I was like, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And I came out here in 2021 for that job, and I've been the GM since April of 2023. So that's my story.
Awesome. Thank you both. I'm going to lob an easy one at you before I get into the more difficult ones. But what are the biggest challenges in managing large-scale sports and entertainment venues, and how do you address them? And could you give me maybe a couple specific you got down there at Blue Arena?
I love this question. It's the best. Naturally, it's difficult to be 600 places at one time, right? We have a very large part-time staff and full-time staff at the arena and the Ranch Events Complex, and you hope that through training and through your program and the structure that your staff is well-versed in how to provide great customer service and respond to issues and questions and perform their job. But naturally, it is difficult to be 600 places at one time. And so we do that with structured training and things of that nature. We work in an extremely high dynamic environment, right? There's a lot of changes, things happen on a fly, and you know, training our staff to be flexible and understanding, and what that looks like from an event to an event basis, because no event's the same in our industry. It's a lot of what we work on and just beat in front, not the right word, but really focus in our training process with everybody. I mean, you're a great suite server. We wear you out on making sure that you operate efficiently every time you go to the suite.
For those who don't know, I work for OVG Group. So this is my boss's boss sitting there, and yeah, so this is scary. Sorry.
Not at all. The pay scale goes up and down as this conversation goes on. So, what do you think? I mean, it's a fun environment. I've been doing this for 23 years. I don't know if I would ever be able to do anything else. My wife always says, like, what if you did so-and-so? I'm like, that sounds terribly boring to me. It's an amazing, industry that we work in. Yes, there's challenges, right? Like, COVID was a disaster for our entire industry, and I was very fortunate at the time working in Memphis, Tennessee. We had a great client, City of Memphis, that said, now I had a much smaller staff at the stadium than I do here at Blue Arena, but we're not going to lay anybody off. We were fortunate because we were indoor, outdoor venue and fairgrounds as well, that we got creative with the type of events we hosted. We did a lot of drive-through events. We did, like movie nights. We did these like digital concerts. But that was really challenging for our industry. But on the back end of it, it's been the most successful run of especially the touring side of our industry, probably in the history of the industry in terms of tickets sold in the last 3 years. Naturally, we're starting to see a little bit of a leveling of our industry in terms of everybody who's been touring post-COVID to make as much money and recover that year to 18-month dead period, that the industry's starting to level back off again to where it probably should be. So now the challenge for us is like resetting that and making sure that we're doing everything we can to drive content to our venues, but do it in a way that is probably more standardized as it should be. And so those are the new challenges we're seeing today, is just post-COVID, the industry kind of stabilizing again to where it probably should have been from the get-go.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, after COVID, I think people started being very aware and intentional of where their money is going. And there's so much access to everything right now, with whether it's through your phone or anything digital, or, and it takes a lot, like working in the industry, it takes a lot for me to want to spend a night off at a concert. Even though I love the music industry, I love going to concerts, but it really has to be something that I want to see in order for me to leave my house and leave my dogs and go travel to go to a concert and actually put my money in that, into that venue. And so I think that's a challenge that probably Thomas's team deals with, is just who do we book that we know we can bring enough people in and who are going to actually commit to coming. And then on the hospitality side of things, I think one thing that we have struggled with, and it's gotten a lot better, but particularly post-COVID, is just staffing. Working in hospitality is a lot of fun. It's great. We've got an awesome team, but sometimes you have long days and it can be grueling. And there are certain people who will, they'll come in, they'll be like, this is great, and they'll work a day, and then they'll be like, I'm never coming back again. And so that's something, we have a really solid team where we're at now, but that's something that the past few years we've really had to kind of look at, so.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to ask a more difficult question, but I want you to understand before I ask this question that we're in a room full of business students, and they're looking for revenue ideas, and they aren't so much mad about the policies that Blue Arena has implemented recently. So, how do you balance the business side of venue management with the guest experience to ensure both profitability and customer satisfaction? And I'm going to give you two specific things for each of you to hit on. Thomas, recently Blue Arena has started charging for parking, something that's very not popular with guests, but has led to definitely more profitable structure for Blue Arena as a whole. And then Emily, I think no one's going to walk into any sports venue and really appreciate the prices that they're spending on a cup of beer. So through those kind of lens, could you kind of talk about how you balance that profitability and customer satisfaction?
It's a yin and a yang, right? So to help educate how our industry works, for the vast majority of privatized venue management, third-party services, we're operating on behalf of municipalities. Our job is to drive as much revenue as we can, make these venues as least reliant on general funds and taxpayer dollars as humanly possible. That's more difficult depending on the size of your building and the market you're in. But by developing various revenue streams, we start reducing the need of that general fund and that taxpayer dollar. At the same time, we're not just taking all that money and pocketing it, we're redistributing that money, right? We're redistributing newer programs to improve the customer experience and the fan experience. A lot of times that's the justification municipalities and venue owners have to sit there and make other capital investments to improve the venue. It's definitely, one impacts the other. And for us, related to the paid parking piece, so Larimer County, the government, owns the Ranch Events Complex. 200-ish acres we are. Blue Arena itself is just one venue on that campus, and our OVG team is just one component of that entire team there. But the challenge for Larimer County is, it only gets more expensive to operate these large event complexes, and so they needed new ways to start paying for general wear and tear and maintenance and improving the overall structure and guest experience of the campus. And so through a paid parking program, it generated another revenue stream of which could be completely directed right back into the operating cost of the campus to improve a variety of pieces for the campus from a functionality standpoint as well as an infrastructure standpoint. And yes, that's difficult, but it's not, a decision wasn't made in a vacuum. The county had done a lot of research comparing it to other special events complexes in and out of Colorado. And the reality is, it's pretty commonplace, for special events complexes to have some type of paid parking program. And they tried to do it in a fashion to where it wasn't just a dramatic increase in cost. And, the fun part for me is I took the job in November. They had just implemented the paid parking program in October. So I got to inherit all of the, why are you doing this? And it took time. A lot of that is, candidly, it's like anything, transparency is critical, right? And our ability to communicate to the public, on why the county was implementing this program was critical, and we spent a lot of time the first several months kind of almost in an education process. But it's opening up more and more doors. The ranch kind of announced a month or so ago kind of a restructure of their master plan for the campus, of which has the capacity to bring a new convention center, potential amphitheater, other venues to the campus to service northern Colorado. But to justify that, you've got to have those revenue streams for the county government to make the decision to invest $200+ million in that improvement. And things like the paid parking program, what we do at Blue Arena with all of our services, what Emily and her team does, driving food and beverage throughout the campus. We have another division of our company, OVG Global Partnerships, that sells all the sponsorship and advertising. Collectively, along with our county partners who operate the rest of the ranch venues, you got to bring all these revenue streams to the table to justify why a municipal government should be making these investments. And it is difficult, but one hopefully impacts the other. That's the cycle of our industry. Because at the end of the day, we're here to serve a community, right? We're here to provide the best platform possible for live entertainment and events to benefit the taxpayers of northern Colorado across all of our communities and municipalities. Sometimes some decisions aren't as taking as well as others, but I often tell people there's a longer game at play than just what's on the surface at the very beginning. And that's difficult to look at sometimes, I know from a consumer standpoint, but hopefully people see the benefit of it in the long run. What about your beer prices?
Mine will be short and sweet. No, I think, when we do our pricing every year, we compare it to every other venue in the general area. We compare to Denver, we compare to CSU, and we're usually pretty in line. We're a little lower than some places here, but in all reality, people look at our costs or our pricing and they say, oh, well, you're not paying very much for a beer, so why are you charging me so much? But they don't look at the back end of the labor that goes into it and all of that other stuff that really goes into that price as well. And in terms of balancing that, one thing that we really try to do is just simple food done well. And so in our concession stands, we could have a burger, but how do we elevate that and give that, give a new experience to a guest that comes in, and instead of just getting a cheeseburger, it's, elaborated on a little bit, and it's something that maybe they wouldn't find in Denver or they wouldn't find somewhere else. And just really listening to our guests that come through the building. I mean, last year we had a lot of criticisms about, we're coming to a hockey game, we don't want concessions food, we want healthy food. But then you get healthy food and people don't buy it because they want concessions food. And so it's just a balancing act of, listening to what the guests have to say, trying things out and seeing how it works and adjusting from there, so.
Yeah, I do find that I sell a lot more chicken tenders than I do the veggie trays. So, yeah, shocker. Thomas, so this year, Blue Arena, back in December, did something that it does just about every year, where you went from hockey to extreme bull riding to, then you did motocross, and then you went back to hockey. And from my understanding, this was kind of your first experience with that kind of transition of going through all those different events, bringing in dirt, doing everything like that. What's something that you learned from that process?
We have really good people. When I worked at FedEx Forum, we had two basketball tenants, right? University of Memphis and the Memphis Grizzlies. Well, we were the Memphis Grizzlies, but the university was our tenant. And so we did a lot of basketball to basketball conversions and naturally some concerts. But, the dirt, being in an ice primary facility for the hockey team, is a unique piece because, first and foremost, you got to protect that ice to bring in that dirt, right? So there's a process in terms of laying what we call polar flooring, which is the decking. If you go to a show, either at Blue Arena or Ball Arena, when the Avs or the Eagles are in season, you're walking on essentially a decking that covers the ice. We then put plastic down and then plywood. It's an extremely tedious and laborious process, of which our conversions team handles all of it. And sometimes we put them on some pretty tight time frames. Like right now, we're going out of hockey into Disney on Ice. You're like, well, that's just ice. Well, no, actually, we're flooding the rink, painting it because it has to be a completely white surface. You can't have all the hockey lines in. And then as soon as Disney on Ice is over with, we have to shave it all back down to hockey where the lines and the logos are. We're going to do the same thing again in a couple weeks for Cirque, where right now we have 4 days to go from ice to, from Disney on Ice to hockey. We're going to have 2 days potentially going out of Cirque to Eagles. And so you just learn real well, like how well trained your staff is, how dedicated they are to their trade. And what I came away from it was that I'm just very impressed and thankful for the operations team we have. Those are the people behind the scenes. A lot of times, like our hospitality team too, there's so many functions within an arena or a stadium or any other large event venue. There's a lot of people behind the scenes that you never see, right? You never know how it happens. It just happens. We used to do these GoPros, where if we had like 5 or 6 events in a given span, we do like a GoPro and then take that time lapse and put it out over social media. And we did that actually. Our marketing team did that to kind of shout out to the ops team all the work they did. And it's something. The one thing I really learned though is all the flies that come with dirt. So that was a little new for me. But Emily loves the dirt. It's right by her office. So
Emily's office can be described as a storage closet that happens to be right next to where the bulls are kept when they do rodeos and bull riding. So she really enjoys when rodeo comes to town. Well, thank you for that. That is quite the transition, and it's very difficult. Emily, you have a huge team of employees because you have a lot of part-time employees who maybe come in for, once a week, twice a week, maybe for events. How do you keep employees with that structure? And is there anything that you've kind of implemented in your teams that you feel has helped with your retaining employees?
I feel like this is a personal question, Nate. I think a lot of the employees that we do have work at, some of them work at Ball, they're going to school, they're looking for a part-time job that they can make a decent amount of money in, and realistically serving in suites, as you know, is not a terrible gig. So I think, obviously we want competitive pay, and we do our best to do that. But I think the biggest value to working in the industry that we work in is really you get to come in and you get to do the fun things that other people don't get to do at work. You get to see the shows, you get to see the rodeos, you get to see the behind the scenes parts of it that most people don't get to experience. And I think most of our staff, especially the people who have been with us for years on end, that's why they keep coming back. That, and then also just the fact that you're working with a good group of people. When I started, I came out in 2021, and it was me and I think maybe 3 managers, and we were just keep your head above water, we'll get through it. We had 2 hourly people, and how we've grown since then, and the core group of people, part-time and full-time, that we have has really been a solid group of people, and they're fun to work with. So I think that's a thing as well, is you come to work, you get to see a cool event, you get to work with people that you like, and I think that's huge. So
Sweet. I think we're going to do the raffle drawing now at this point. I've made y'all wait long enough. Bated anticipation. Remember, these tickets are for April 11th, Friday at 7 p.m. If you end up winning the tickets, you'll need to head into the back. We're going to get your email so that way we can get you parking, so that way you don't have to complain to Thomas about that later. So we'll spin it, we'll read out the number. I know that some people have left, so we might have to pick a few numbers. And please know this is not the end of our session. We will continue with questions after this. Look at this contraption. Okay, maybe don't spin it. If your ticket is on the floor, you didn't win. Sorry.
hold on, I'm not going to let anybody get cast out. Let's dump those back in there. Shake it. Hold on. Hold on. We're not ready.
This thing looks like it was from the 1910s. So, Thomas, if you want to pull out a ticket, we're going to put this on you and not me.
All right. If you are ticket number 663-9620, you are a winner.
Anyone? Okay, next.
All right, sorry. If you are ticket number 663-9639, you are a winner. Seriously? First staff event I did, joining the team here in Northern Colorado, we had a staff Christmas, and I was the bingo person, right? Yeah, that was fun. Talk about culture. All right, if you are ticket number 663, I guess that's going to be the same for everybody, 9598. 9598.
Oh, winner!
Chicken dinner. All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you, OVG, for donating those. Appreciate that. Thank you, Dana, if you're watching the live stream.
Yeah, thanks, Dana.
We're going to get this contraption out of here before it hurts someone.
Yeah, I don't want to break anything.
Awesome. Thank you. Back to the questions. So, Thomas, you've led major renovations like the $220 million project at Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, and also the ongoing master plan at the ranch, which includes some plans in the work for Blue Arena. What are the biggest factors to consider when upgrading a venue?
I think that first and foremost, you're not making that decision in a vacuum. You're not designing this in a vacuum, right? You need to make sure that you're considering everything. Let's take, for instance, the stadium in Memphis. It was a stadium built in 1963. Well, I loved her. She was very antiquated for today's college athletics and today's college football, major college football. And so we also had 4 tenants at the stadium: the University of Memphis, the Southern Heritage Classic, which is an HBCU game, the Ozone Liberty Bowl, and then the Memphis Showboats, the UFL. Everything that we did in the design, in the program of what we were looking to build out, we did in consultation with our partners, with the city, who was the owner, as well as our team from OVG. And that's the same for any project, right? You look at it holistically. How's it going to better all parts? Naturally, especially in older buildings, it's how can we improve the fan experience? How can we improve the revenue generation capacity? How can we mitigate and control expenses of operating these buildings better? You look at it in a total package, and what's interesting is you go through that, you go through all these processes with your partners, your architects, and your engineers. You have this great vision, but it's the reality of also what the owner, the municipality, whoever it is, has the capacity to spend, and making sure that you're taking that X dollars and spending it as wisely as possible for the hope that this venue can serve another 20 to 30 years serving its community, that you're future-proofing it as best you can. It's not just on the back of a napkin. Sometimes people think it is. But it's the same for the ranch project right now. There's a team. The county's running stakeholder meetings right now. They're getting the public's input, which is the right thing to do. You got to make sure that you're not going to appease everybody, that you're checking as many boxes along the way when you do these major projects, because that's critical. And it's no different in a new build, too. If you're building a new facility, that what you're building is going to service the community to the best of its capacity based on the design and functionality. So there's a long-winded way of saying it's a lot of planning, a lot of communicating, even before you put pen to paper.
Yeah, that's hard. It's millions of dollars going into the ranch right now. If you're not aware, we've built at least one new building, and we're planning on building a couple more. And then also Blue Arena might have some adjustments. So, Emily, a question for you, a fun one. We're doing a fun one now. So one thing that people might not be aware of is that food and beverage at arenas are also responsible for providing meals for talents and acts as they come in. I got to meet Adam Sandler when I brought him dinner, and that was so cool. Can you maybe just give us a fun little, what's the oddest thing that you've seen on one of those request forms? Like, is there any M&Ms with no blue M&Ms? Like, is there anything cool, fun? Do you do anything?
No, I don't do anything.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to think. I think there are things that have definitely happened and been requested that I can't publicly say, or I'm not going to say on a college campus. I mean, yeah, I don't have a specific example. I mean, every artist that comes in, it's a different personality, and it's just fun to get to interact and be able to, you know, let my chefs kind of come up with something creative. And our executive chef, who also oversees CSU, he loves stuff like that, and so you just give him a project and he goes all out. But I'll think about it for the rest of this, and I'll let you know if I come back to anything specific.
Thank you. Thank you. Thomas, I'm giving you a hard one, and I'm sorry. Could you maybe touch on for a second the importance, for those of you who don't know, Blue Arena is home to the Colorado Eagles. And if you could maybe, yeah, it's not on there. I'm sorry, I'm surprising you with this one. The Colorado Eagles, could you maybe touch on the importance that their business is to the building, and then also any plans that Blue Arena might have should Colorado Eagles fly away to Greeley?
Well, first, Chuck could probably have some pretty amazing stories about artists and their selections for catering. You know, we're unique in the fact that we've had a tenant at Blue Arena, formerly Budweiser Events Center, since essentially the day the building opened, right? The Eagles have been a mainstay of our buildings, one of the justifications for building the facility. Well, Budweiser Event Center originally was going to essentially be a larger scale equestrian facility. And then over the course of the planning at the time, Larimer County with their consultants decided, let's make this more of a multi-purpose facility. And then it came to their attention that there was a desire to bring a hockey team to northern Colorado. So from day one, well, whatever day in the process that was, probably like day 65 or something, you know, the Eagles have been essentially part of our program. And it's critical. I've essentially worked with the tenant my entire career in some form or fashion. It's a big piece of our business. It's, you know, first it's the programming piece. Those are guaranteed dates on your calendar. It's the reality of the impact it makes to your premium and your sponsorship of having that anchor component in your facility. And, you know, the reality is Larimer County, as the venue owner, has done an incredible job trying to maintain a positive relationship and, you know, provide the best home facility possible for the Eagles. And yes, there's opportunity maybe here in the future that the Eagles might try to find a new nest. You don't know what you don't know. That's just that's part of the challenge and just the reality of our industry, especially in the sports side of the industry, right? In terms of, it's no different for a non-sports specific building, but you know, the capacity to have the newest, shiniest, brightest, you're always wanting that if you can have it. You know, for us, if that opportunity unfortunately presented itself that we might no longer have the Eagles, you know, naturally it's very difficult to replace that type of component. Our challenge would be, like, is there another opportunity out there? You got to be right-minded. It does the community no good to sit there and say, oh, we're going to go get another hockey team, right? You've got an institution that's got 20-plus years of history in northern Colorado. You can't necessarily compete with that. Can you find something to offset and augment it with maybe another sports-type tenant? Absolutely. You know, our building, it may change how we think we're renovating Blue Arena. You know, OVG, we're not just venue managers from a management perspective on behalf of a municipal client or another owner. We're also venue owners ourselves. We've built more arenas than any other private enterprise in North America in the last 5 years. We're building our 8th building right now. And a lot of how we're building our buildings is more music-centric because the capacity not to be reliant solely on a tenant just provides more flexibility for the building in terms of when you do have those opportunities for tenants that your program is not wholly reliant on that. Now, again, like I said, our building's 20-plus years old. All of a sudden, switching gears out of the blue and making Blue Arena the most musically friendly venue in Colorado might be a challenge, but those are what buildings are seeing today and trying to be less reliant on tenants. But they still form a critical piece of our industry, especially for us here in northern Colorado and at Blue Arena. Great question.
Yeah, that was a good way to answer that. Sorry for springing that on you.
Oh, you're good.
Emily, we're going to go easier. Well, not necessarily easier for you. OVG Hospitality at Blue Arena is broken up kind of into two sections. You have your premium services section, which includes catering, suites, the restaurant, things of that nature. And then you also have concessions, which is on the general floor where everyone else goes. Is there a certain focus of OVG to kind of err towards the premium side and try to make your money there? Or is it just a general, how can we make everything as premium as possible?
I would say no, there's not like an intentional leaning one way or another. Generally, most of our revenue is going to come from concessions, just because that's where the volume of people are. Premium, you know, people pay good money to come to our suites and have that experience and have you as a server, and so they, you know, we want to give them a premium experience as well. But with that being said, we also want to find ways, just as a company, to elevate our normal offerings on the concourse as well. So it's not really one way or another. It really depends on what the type of event is. A lot of events like Disney on Ice, we probably won't have a lot of people in the suites, but we'll have a lot of people on the concourse. So there's opportunities there, and so it's really just finding those opportunities based on the events and capitalizing on them.
Awesome. At this point, does anyone have any questions they want to ask Thomas or Emily? So I got a couple more hard ones. Oh, look, you got up easy. Sorry, Audrey has to come grab the microphone and then she'll be right over to you.
Hello. Thanks for being here. If you had to choose one skill to attribute your success in your current position to, what skill would you choose?
You can say two, probably. They'll probably let you. I would just say adaptability. I think in the events industry in general, everything is always changing, and you really need to be able to kind of pivot with very minimal notice. So I think adaptability, and then I'm going to say another one as well. Just showing up and your willingness to learn and absorb everything you can. I think getting into the industry, there's a kind of, you have an idea of what you're going into, just like with any situation, and it's never that. And so just taking, you know, at the end of the really grueling day, you can be really negative about it, or you can take the positives from it and choose to move forward with those. And so I think just the adaptability part of it, plus just showing up and, you know, putting one foot in front of the other, eventually you're like, oh, actually this isn't that difficult. You know, I actually can own this, so.
I'm going two now, since you took two. Our industry at the end of the day is about relationships. Everything that we do in our industry is built on the foundation of relationships. It's because we have a relationship with Nate, we're here today. He does such a great job for us. You know, as a part of that, you've got to be a great communicator, right? You got to have the ability in the entirety of the communication process to be a good listener, to clearly communicate what it is about whatever functionality you perform in the business. And then the other big piece is just that attention to detail, right? Making mistakes is a natural thing of life, but your ability to mitigate how many mistakes you make as you grow in our career is critical if you want to grow in the career. Those two pieces, in addition to what Emily said, I think really those are four great cornerstones of what can help frame a good professional in our industry. And just, do you like to have fun, right? Like, we don't do what we do because we like to do all the mundane. The mundane's a part of having fun and enjoying what we do, having 5,000-6,000 people come in the building, enjoying the event they go to and leaving safe, right? That's the fulfillment I get out of my job every day. So, yeah. What other questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Griffin. Yeah, your hand went up first. I would say from the venue's perspective, to help educate, we look at our market as essentially North Denver to Cheyenne. What shocks people is within a 45-minute drive of the ranch is about 800,000 people. That's pretty darn competitive in the landscape of touring, with a higher than national average discretionary income and median income, as I break this table. So for as a market, it's probably much stronger than some of us would realize it is, right? You sit there and you're like, oh, it's Fort Collins, it's Windsor, it's Loveland, it's Greeley, et cetera. It's the totality of all of them. That's no different than any other city. If you live in Denver, you may live 45 minutes away the way the crow flies, but it's going to take you 2 hours to get down to Ball Arena or something, right? The other benefit is for the most part, it's pretty easy to get in and around northern Colorado, right? And so that plays up very well to what we have to provide to our community. I've taken another step in terms of like, for you guys today in your seats, what does it mean for your opportunities? Like, the reality is, from the other side of it's from like a corporate perspective. You would sit there and look at a building like Blue Arena in northern Colorado and say, they probably don't have a lot of corporate partners and et cetera. I mean, the reality is our corporate partnerships team, the revenue we derive from sponsorship and advertising, based on the size of building we have, is one of the highest in our company. That's across 400 venues. So it shows you that the business community of northern Colorado is also there. There's a lot of industry here. Now, naturally, they may lean more towards the ag side of the world because of what northern Colorado is, but the capacity to go out, find a job, make an income is here. It's definitely better than it was in Memphis, right? And we were home to FedEx, AutoZone, International Paper. We had 3 massive Fortune 500 companies. But you go that next level down of business in Memphis, Tennessee, and it was definitely a struggle. It wasn't as much as you would expect for a city of 1.5 million people. So what we have here is probably for Joe Blow, Jane Doe driving north or south on I-25 through our community, is not realizing how strong it really can be. But it's incumbent upon us to continue to promote how great of a community we have. And that's my challenge every day, as I'm trying to bring content to the arenas, working with the agents and working with the promoters. Luckily, 20 plus years of operation, the building's made a name for itself. It's known. But as the industry continues to grow, we still got to do our job to promote how strong and how growing northern Colorado is. Heard the other day, just in Larimer County, they're expecting a 30% growth in the next 10 years. So Larimer County is right now right around 400,000 residents. So you're talking about almost a third of our population growth in the next 10 years. That's massive. That shows you that the industry they expect to be there for people to move into our community is there. And that's really encouraging to me. It's why I took the job here, candidly, because I knew there was growth opportunity. What do you got to say? Those are really nice. This room's amazing, by the way. I was very fortunate, born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. I had 11 fraternity brothers. We all lived within 2 miles of each other. All of our kids played together. Our wives were like their own little wives club of Memphis. It was ridiculous. But we were fortunate that my wife, being from here, we had a little bit of a community to move to. So that helped the move here. But just in general, like, the quality of life in northern Colorado is amazing. I've got a 5-year-old son, about to be 6. The things I get to do with him here that I couldn't do in Memphis. We had a great zoo. We had a couple nice things here and there, but there's just so much more to do in general, right? Like, you don't take that for somebody, you're trying to transplant to take a job. What's it going to be for my family? Public schools here are incredible. So just overall, what our community can provide to any family moving here, I think, is pretty darn awesome. And then, have a D1 program that got robbed last night. He traveled, by the way. But you've got so many great things in our community, and Old Town's as neat as any place I've been to, and I've been very fortunate to have gone to a lot of places, and it's a lot better than Pearl Street. So, a little shot at RCU guys over here. Ouch. But we have a great area. Now, what do you have to say?
Yeah, you touched on a lot of it, but I think the biggest difference, just for me, having grown up in Chicago, is just the accessibility of everything in Chicago. One thing I think that we have a challenge with at the ranch in particular is that there's really no public transportation to get there. And so people come, and then they go, and it's gone. So I think that for us is probably a huge challenge, and or definitely a huge challenge, and one of the biggest differences, I think, between coming from a large city like Chicago to moving out here. And then in terms of things that I like out here, I love the mountains. It was definitely kind of a culture shock to come out here and go from skyscrapers to mountains, but it's a lot calmer, and just the open space, I can't say anything negative about it. I miss my family and I miss the food in Chicago, and that's about it. So
Another reason why we did paid parking is because we don't have a lot of public transit. So we were trying to encourage people to carpool to save on emissions. So there you go. I just remembered that.
Hi. Sorry. I was just wondering if anything about your job drastically changed with the branding change or sponsorship change from Budweiser to Blue, or like Sports Authority to Empower, or Pepsi to Ball. Yeah, what changed about your job, if anything?
Well, one, massive credit to our partnerships team that the sponsorship value from Budweiser to Blue Federal Credit Union was tenfold. So from a revenue standpoint, for our operations, there was 10 times the investment from our partner at Blue than we previously had. A lot more than little. So, well, it's a, I have to go back and see if it was a public document or not. Happy to share it later. But the other piece is just, with every, with change, there's opportunity, right? The timing was perfect. That summer, as we were going into the naming rights change, the county had already instituted a massive capital improvement program, taking out all of our old seats. As you might remember, Budweiser Event Center had ugly green seats, right? We were going to brand new seats with hussy seating. We were already in the midst of doing a color change in the building, so just so happened that Blue's color scheme actually kind of worked really well as where we were going with that. So there was a shared mutual opportunity for both parties for Blue to be a part of this $5.5 million renovation, of which technically their investment didn't cover, but from the optics of it, it looked like by Blue being the naming rights partner, they made this massive change to the arena. So it's kind of like I scratch your back, I scratch your back. The flip side of it is what you don't realize is all the hard work and everything that has to go into a naming rights change, right? Our marketing team, we essentially we created a new document in terms of like what it takes for us to move a partnership out and a new one in, and everything that we had to go through and make sure that we were converting from Budweiser Event Center to Blue Arena or Blue Federal Credit Union Arena, and the process that took. So it's a lot in terms of like the reality of getting there. I cannot say enough about Blue Federal Credit Union in terms of being a partner. This is their first major naming rights engagement they've had. They've got a smaller one down in Superior with a sports complex there. But they've been an incredible partner. They've leaned in. They've been highly engaged. The other part is it's beneficial when your title partner engages with more than just the building, right? So they're heavily engaged with the Colorado Eagles. They naturally already do a lot of stuff in northern Colorado with a lot of their charitable functionality through the Blue Foundation. So there was a lot of opportunity that presented itself through this partnership. In our industry, especially in the last 10 or 15 years, financial institutions have become kind of the mainstay in naming rights. Just it fits their business in terms of touching, a community, especially for Blue. They were expanding into northern Colorado. They had just acquired another credit union. So it made a lot of business sense for them. So how did it impact you?
So we used to obviously be the Budweiser Event Center, and with that naming rights partner, they also had pretty much just carte blanche on any sort of like alcohol sponsorship within the building and throughout the entire property. And so I think the biggest impact to us, if you've been to Blue Arena lately, you've seen, you know, the Bud Light balcony is now the Voodoo Lounge. And awesome lighting. If you haven't been there, I highly recommend you check it out. It's cool. But the biggest impact on my team is probably the fact that we went from a sponsorship right that took over the entire campus. And now it's just exclusively in Blue Arena for Coors. And so what that means for me is we have all these fairgrounds events like the Overland Expo, and we have car shows that come in. And so if they come in and they want a specific vendor that they want a sponsorship with that doesn't really necessarily align with what's within Blue Arena, we now have the opportunity to explore that. So it gives us some more flexibility on the hospitality side.
Great question. That's it? We're done? Perfect.
My microphone got stolen, so I'll come back here. A big thank you to Thomas and Emily for being here. Thank you both. Yep, you can apply. Awesome.